Welcome back. It's Eric Arnold in his Politics Barn. The Sports Barn. We made a short little episode of that earlier today. But you care about politics, so that's what we're here to talk about. I don't have any real breaking news for you in this episode. I just have, some notes of the current events, I guess, and just my comments on them. So I don't know if hopefully it'll be worth your time, right? You want to hear me talk, or you want to hear somebody talk about politics, and I guess I'm as good as anybody. So let's see what we got here. I guess the most significant thing I saw over the weekend was that Sidney Powell, that's the woman attorney who was part of the press conference that I featured in my last episode, the Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, legal team of Donald Trump press conference. The Trump team is now making it clear that she's not representing them. For those of you who didn't watch the last episode, the press conference basically was Rudy Giuliani leads off. He talks about good old-fashioned election fraud, ballot stuffing, the traditional Democrat fraud type stuff where we just print up ballots in the back room until we got enough to win. That's tried, true, been done before, the traditional stuff. Then Sidney Powell takes the stage, and she is going on about the Dominion voting machines, how they have been used to electronically flip votes, delete Trump votes, or in other cases, flip a Trump vote to a Biden vote. And that this happened all over the place, and that Trump probably should have had upwards of 80 million votes. I honestly can't remember if it's her saying this or I heard this from Linwood. Trump should have had 400 some electoral votes. Things that were unconventional, if you will. I mean, some pretty out there allegations. Allegations that I don't want to misstate this. In other words, ballot stuffing is just as bad as using electronics to steal an election. Theft is theft, fraud is fraud, and if you're using ballot stuffing to flip a presidential election, essentially that's treason, and people should get shot. Or is that what's going to happen? Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a second. But, this electronics to flip the election electronically, I just think that goes above and beyond what the ballot stuffing would be. And yeah, that's absolute treason, if any of this is true. So now, that press conference was what? Wednesday, Thursday? By the weekend, the Trump team has said, hey, wait a minute now, she's on her own. She's not representing us. So I could only read that as the Trump team just does not think she's helping them. That's the only thing I could think of. I know, downvote away that I'm showing negativity here. But I haven't seen, I think that means the Trump team themselves, the president, has not seen or doesn't agree with the Powell evidence, whatever it is that she keeps teasing out there, but we never see it. I guess we're going to have to see it soon. I think she's going to file her lawsuit here pretty quick. What I fear her evidence is that she's got some contractor, somebody who has shown her that this can be done, that these systems can flip votes or delete votes. But that's a big difference between it can be done and it was done. That's just showing that it can be done, and then trying to make that leap to see it can be done. So of course it must have been done. Well, you got to show it was done anyway. So I'm dubious on the Powell evidence, but I mean, let's set that aside for a second. Let's just set the Sidney Powell arguments aside. I want to come back to that. Assume that the only thing that was fraudulent in the election was just your ballot stuffing. Your ballot stuffing would have taken place in Milwaukee, Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta. And those would be the four places we're sure it went down. And then maybe in Arizona, we're not sure. Probably in Nevada. But definitely in those four major Democrat cities, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Atlanta. Other than that, I've looked at these results and I've looked at them, spent hours, matching stuff up, basically comparing it to Trump in 2016. And, it's very possible Trump just lost, He bled support all over the place, all over the country, in blue areas, in purple areas, in deep red areas. He just underperformed what he did in 16. Or said another way, Biden overperformed what Hillary Clinton did. I mean, it's possible that Hillary Clinton was just such a hated person, is a hated person, that Joe Biden, with all his horribleness, could not reach down to the level of Hillary Clinton, which, yeah, I can totally buy that. I mean, we're sick of Joe Biden just because he's been in our face for the last 9 months. Try to remember back 4 years ago what we thought of Hillary Clinton. I could see where the country hated Clinton a lot more than it hates Biden. I think that's what has happened here. Some other thoughts. I looked at the states, all the various states. Like I said, Trump bled support all over the country. All over the country. I mean, there were very few places where he overperformed what he did in 16. He overperformed in New York. New York City, the whole state. I think part of that was that Trump is making inroads with the Hispanic community. New York City, definitely some of the boroughs heavily Hispanic. I think part of it is that Cuomo and de Blasio are just such clowns that a homegrown New Yorker like Donald Trump suddenly is looking a little more plausible to the good people in New York City than those clowns are. He did well in Florida, definitely in the southern Florida area. Again, making inroads with the Hispanic communities, particularly down there, where I think that's where you were dealing with people like from Cuba, maybe Venezuela. These are Hispanics. They've seen the hardcore Marxism that the Democrats are selling, and they don't want any part of it because they've lived it. They don't want that. So I think that's, Trump did well in Florida. But other than that, just almost everywhere, if even in a red state, he would probably churn out a few more votes just because turnout all over the country was up. I think around 15% total, 15% for the whole country. In other words, I think there were 14% more votes cast in this cycle than 16. So that might, I think I did the math, I guessed it around 20 million. So of that 20 million, plus another 5, because you had a lot of third parties going in 16, so that much less third party action this time around. So there might have been another 5 million up for grabs of people that voted third party last time. Now they're going to go one way or the other. So of that 25 million, Trump, he just didn't get enough of them. He got some, and he got a lot of them in his red areas, but I think Biden got the majority of those votes. I looked at Vermont. I think one of the things happened there. Trump, or I should say Biden, did much better than Clinton did in Vermont. And I thought, well, you're saying, what does that care? What in the hell does Vermont have to do with anything? Well, I think what that meant to me was the Bernie bros, the Bernie people, the hard left Marxists. I think they sat out in 16, a lot of them. And in this cycle, they came home and supported Biden. I told you my Marxist sister-in-law, she hates Bernie Sanders, despises him because she blames him for Hillary not getting it done in 16. Now, what do I know about how leftists think and their politics? But I think you might be onto something, because those Bernie bros, just judging by the Vermont, Bernie Sanders from Vermont, that's the link between Bernie Sanders and Vermont. That leads me to believe that these hardcore Marxists, that I think they sat out, a lot of them in 16. They didn't sit out this time. They came back to Biden and said, you know what, he's going to die soon anyway. We got Harris in there. We'll get everything we want. Yeah, I can do a Biden-Harris ticket, or as they misspoke half the time, a Harris-Biden ticket. So I think that definitely happened. I get my notes here. There's no doubt that the mail votes boosted turnout. I don't think there's any question about that. My general thought was, if there was no virus, Trump was going to win. He was going to be reelected. The virus, I think, was the pivotal issue that flipped this over to Biden. It did a couple things. They were able to blame Trump for it. And then it enabled them to have this mail-in balloting in places they would not have normally had it. That boosted turnout, and then those mail-in ballots boosted the Biden advantage. If there were if there was a virus but no mail-in balloting, it would have been really close. But there was mail-in balloting. And let's see what else we got here. So, do I think that Biden legitimately won the election? I don't know. Even though Trump underperformed what he did in 16, in 16, Trump lost the national vote by 2 points. This time around, he lost it by 4 points. But, due to the wonders of the electoral college, he could still win and lose the national vote, because Democrats just run up their massive advantage in California, and that's how they win the national vote. They have such huge advantages in California. There you go. But I would say, it's iffy. I think Trump probably won Wisconsin. I think that the Democrats did enough there to shade the rules, gin up enough votes in Milwaukee at the middle of the night, and came up with enough votes to flip flip Wisconsin. I think they probably flipped Georgia. Same deal there, where I think they just printed up enough ballots in the back room, and were able to, have Atlanta flip the whole state. Pennsylvania, I'm not sure. The margin here in PA is bigger than it is in Georgia and Wisconsin. Same with Michigan. I have no doubt that they cheated in both places, but the margin's big enough where they might have won without cheating. It's tough. It's close. The hell of it is proving it. That is where it's going to be just about impossible, I think, for the Republicans to prove this in court and get another election, overturn this election, do whatever. Now, again, I'm sitting aside Sidney Powell. I'm sitting aside the Dominion, whatever evidence she eventually is going to produce. I'm setting that aside. Set that aside. So without that, if all we've got is the traditional ballot stuffing, for example, I got a call from the Berks County Board of Elections called me, if you can believe that. I told you I left them a message about my missing vote caper, where I noticed that 2 precincts were just flat out wrong in the unofficial results. So they actually got around to calling back people had left them messages, so they called me back. I was surprised. Well, she explained to me that I was right and the votes were missing. Apparently what had happened in the Exeter 8 precinct is, in my little precinct, we had one machine there where we stick our blank ballot into the machine, we make our selections, it prints the ballot, and then we take it over to the scanner, or what is also sometimes, I guess, called a tabulator, and stick it into the tabulator and scan it into the system. Well, apparently there are 2 of these things in Exeter 8. It's such a big precinct with double the number of people in my little precinct. They had 2 of these machines going at the same time. And when the night was over, they take, I guess, a thumb drive and they stick it in to the machine, and it downloads the number of votes for each candidate onto the thumb drive, and then that's supposed to be evidence wrapped and what have you, chain of custody, and then that goes to the Board of Elections at the county seat in Reading. Well, what happened there was only one went. They forgot to turn the second one in. That's why half the damn votes were missing. And she didn't mention the other precinct that I complained about, but that must have happened in the exact same place. She said there were 16 precincts in the county where they had 2 of these machines. So they had to have been. Exeter 8 was one of them. Why I'm missing 5 was another one. So of the 16 precincts where they got 2 machines, 2 of them forgot to turn in all the thumb drives. If that makes you feel any better about the competency of these people doing the counting. So I thought that was interesting. Another thing, she explained to me the machinery of how some of this works, where these mail-in ballots, whoa, that was almost a disaster. You have a ballot. The ballot, all it is it lists the candidates. It lists the candidates, you pick who you want. There's no identifying information on the ballot itself for the voter. Then you take that and you stick it in the secrecy envelope, which is just basically a blank envelope that says secrecy envelope or official secrecy envelope or some bullshit like that. Again, no identifying information whatsoever towards the voter on the secrecy envelope. And then you put that in an outer envelope, and that's where they got the actual, on the back of the envelope, that's where it has the identifying information there for the voter. Place for him to tell you who he is, what precinct he's in, sign it. That's all on the outer envelope. So what they did then is in Berks County, and I guess this is how it works all over the state, is the Board of Elections gets the outer envelope, and then they make a determination if there's any kind of issue with the outer envelope. In other words, they open it up. Pretty sure they open it up. Do they open it up? No, I don't think they open it up. I think they just read the back, see if the signature's there, see if the information listed for the voter is correct or is according to the rules. Now, what I thought was interesting is I asked that woman a couple different times. I said, so I was under the impression when this is reviewed that there's a Democrat and a Republican there at the same time, a member of each party, when these mail-in ballots are reviewed. And she didn't answer the question. I must have asked it 3 different ways, and she never did answer the question. She just, what I got out of it basically is there were so many of these envelopes, thousands upon tens of thousands, that they don't strictly adhere to this Republican, Democrat, must be there when the ballots are opened deal on these mail-in ballots. That's not adhered to, especially in a place like Philadelphia where you have to send out the state police just to try to find a Republican. There's so few of them. You don't have enough of the Republicans. They're all Democrats there in a lot of places. So I'm pretty comfortable that in a lot of places, there were no Republicans present when these votes came in and are supposed to be examined to make sure that they meet the regulations according to voting. Does it have a signature? Yes. Is it dated correctly? Yes. Was it post-stamped by the deadline? Yes. Does the signature reasonably match what we got on file? Close enough. I'm comfortable enough that in a lot of places here in Pennsylvania, there were not a member of both parties present when that went on. Now, the rest of the bad news is that once you take the ballot, I guess they open them with machines, I guess, and then give them to just workers. You know, now the election board people, the pros, have looked at the envelope to try to determine if there are any errors. Now all they do, they take that outer envelope and trash it. It's gone. You know, that had the voters identifying information on it. You know, that's gone. It's been separated. There's no way to link it back to that now. So all I have now is a ballot. You know, basically, I have a ballot, and then that is just basically then piled into piles by the workers and shoved into machines. Just shoved into machines. So then, you know, that just counts it up. So I got this big, huge pile of ballots, and I have no idea where they came from. You know, I don't. Over here, when the ballots came in, that's where they had, okay, Herbert Arnold, all right, he sent one in. So if we get another one now from him, the computer will tell us, hey, wait, that's the second vote there for Herbert Arnold. Can't have that. So that's a problem. So I get this big pile of ballots over here, and over here I have a spreadsheet of all the voters in the city of Philadelphia, and you know, I'm checking them off one by one as we're opening their envelopes. So, you know, this is what the problem with Republicans have. You know, I've got this giant stack of votes, and in this giant stack of votes here, I'm almost certain they're ballots that were not filled out by voters, that were filled out by who the hell knows. I mean, to hear Rudy Giuliani tell it, the mob, maybe. I mean, it could be anybody. I think most likely it's just filled out by Democrat operatives. You know, filling out the ballot isn't the trick. That's all that you do there is just darken whatever circles you want to darken. If you're in a hurry, like it's been alleged, you just darken the Biden circle and that's it. You don't have time to do the rest. Biden, 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 Biden. Then the stack gets bigger and bigger. We dump them into the bigger pile, run through the tabulator. Up goes the Biden total. How do you link those ballots, those fake ballots, over here to the spreadsheet? Because what they're doing over here is they're going, all right, how many fake ballots did we add to the pile? 50? 50,000? Okay. Who didn't vote? All right, let's see. He didn't vote, he didn't vote, he didn't vote. All right, well, we'll just assign that one here, check, 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 check. And they just go down and check them off and say they voted. So, you know, how are you going to prove it? You're going to have to go to those voters and figure out which ones did not vote, but they have a vote over here in the big pile. That's going to be damn near impossible. You know, I was looking at some of those vote totals for the Philadelphia, and it's a transient population, not just Philadelphia, but any kind of city. You have a lot of young people. Young people move all the time. They're in an apartment for 9 months, they move. They move somewhere else. Sometimes they move in the same city. 6 months, 9 months. They're going to school. They're there for 6 months during the school, now they go home. You have apartments where you have no idea who's living there. You know who owns the apartment, but you don't know who's actually living in the apartment. The locals might know that. So maybe I'm living in the apartment until maybe February of this year. I move out. Now somebody else moves in. I'm still on the rolls there. So maybe I vote in that old, location where I don't live anymore. You know, maybe I, quote, vote. I don't really vote, but the Democrat machine marks me down as voting. All that stuff could be happening. I think likely did happen in some fashion. I have no idea in what percentages. It's going to be damn near impossible to prove it. You know, I think Giuliani's on the right track. Just basically, hey, you know, there were boxes of ballots coming in the middle of the night from God knows where. You know, what? That's not right. Where could they have been coming from? I have witnesses that said this happened. Yeah, but to point out, you know, it's going to be difficult to find 20,000 people that are going to want to fill out affidavits saying, you know, the Philadelphia County says I voted in the Pennsylvania general election for president. I did not. You know, I just, for one thing, most of these people are Democrats. They're just Democrats that either didn't vote or have moved away. I didn't see too much of the dead voting, if you will. I think Pennsylvania is pretty clean with that one. That's just too easy to prove as a fraud. So I didn't see any of that. You know, I'll give you another example. I was examining one of the precincts in Philadelphia just as kind of a test case, an example. And I just stumbled across the block captain. I stumbled across who it was, just looked her up, and she's on the internet, and lo and behold, here she's the block captain for the Democrat Party. And she's got a Twitter feed, of course, and she's describing the election and very happy and their exploits and what have you. The one thing I thought was interesting is that she's detailing the results. And this is the Saturday morning, you know, leading up to the media declaring Biden the president, Saturday around lunchtime. She's saying, well, here are our results. I had 11 people that asked for ballots and did not return them. So I went looking for these 11 people. I couldn't find them. You know, I knocked on their doors, they didn't respond. But here are our results. And I thought, okay, the results pretty much match up with what, you know, I see now, you know, 10 days later. Except what the difference was the results that she was reporting as of Saturday morning was there was 10 more votes on the total, 9 of which came in after that Saturday morning. After Saturday morning, 10 more votes come in, 9 for Biden. I just thought, I mean, and it was a small precinct. That was like 5% of its total for the whole precinct. I just thought, it's Saturday after the precinct, after the Tuesday election. Where are you getting these votes from? You guys should be long since done counting, and still you're finding votes for Biden? Yeah, that just struck me suspicious. You know, it was 9 votes, but you extrapolate that out over the entire 16, 17, 1,800 precincts in Philadelphia, you know, you could be talking 17,000 votes maybe. So, yeah, I definitely think that the machine down there maximized the Biden totals, if you will. At a minimum, they did that. I would suspect they did more than that they actually filled out some ballots for themselves. But again, how are you going to prove it? How are you going to prove it? So, you know, I think that Trump is really up against it as far as trying to win this thing. Now, before this, we've kind of gone on here. I just want to say a couple things about the Powell allegations. Again, that the Dominion voting systems are somehow flipping the votes. Look, I looked for this. I looked and looked because I want it to be true, sort of. I sort of want it to be true. I half don't want it to be true because that's just a fraud, a treason on such a scale that, the Second Civil War type stuff. I went through all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. 14 counties had the Dominion voting systems, the biggest of which is Montgomery County. Luzerne County has it, that's Wilkes-Barre. Erie County has it, that's Erie. And then the rest are smaller counties, mostly deep red counties. And the vote totals look right to me, frankly. In other words, if I take a Dominion county and I match it up to the totals in the counties around it that are non-Dominion counties, they're very similar, if not identical. Deep red counties are deep red counties. Suburban Philadelphia counties, that's Biden country. All those educated white people in the suburban Philadelphia area, that's Biden country. So Montgomery County, their numbers look right to me. And what do I know? I just have a political science degree and I've lived in Pennsylvania almost my whole life. What do I know? But I couldn't see some of these allegations that are getting tossed around here, as far as 400 some electoral votes for Trump. I couldn't figure how that's possible. I could not figure that one. I just couldn't. I played with the numbers, and if that was true, you would see margins in some of these red states. Trump would have won them by 10 points more than what he won them by. In Texas, he would have won by 20 points. He didn't. He won by 5. I just don't. The only way these numbers could be true is if you'd have to have more than just this Dominion system involved. Powell alluded to the fact, she threw that out there almost as a throwaway line, that the Dominion has some kind of Smartmatic software, and the Smartmatic software was in all the systems. But then it was almost like a throwaway line. It's like, well, wait a minute now. Are you saying that the system I used here in Berks County, the ES&S election system and software, whatever the hell it's called, ES&S, because I hadn't heard anyone saying that company was corrupt. But you would have to have these other companies in on it to get these big numbers that they're talking about, at least here in PA. And so, I don't know. I find it all dubious. I just do. I know that's not what you want to hear. But they have not made the sale to me yet. And honestly, they, at the moment, apparently, is Sidney Powell. And that's it. The Trump team has cut bait with her. I don't know why. I want to see what she's got. I hope it's something explosive. But, I'm not too encouraged by it at the moment. I think it's definitely, look, it's likely that Trump has lost, and that Biden's going to be inaugurated president. I don't know it's likely, but it's definitely possible Biden might have won legitimately. It's going to be hard to tell just because I think that there's enough evidence of fraud. Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania. There's enough evidence of fraud in those states that I don't know we're ever going to know if he won legitimately or not. That's the hell of it. If he had just played the game straight, I think there's a decent chance he would have won anyway. And then people like me would have to admit it. It's like, well, I guess, it looks like it was straight up and up. I mean, the Republican monitors were in Philadelphia while you were counting the votes. You'd let us watch you while you opened all the envelopes. And lo and behold, there were just enough suburban housewives voted against Trump this cycle. Enough Bernie bros came home and voted for Biden. And you had more votes than we did. But, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. They stopped counting in the middle of the night. It all looked very suspicious. And I don't know you're ever going to know who had more votes legitimately. So I'm not ready to crown Joe Biden the legitimate president. I don't know if I ever will be able to. We'll see what evidence comes up in the coming weeks and months. But he's almost certainly going to be crowned president. It's a shame. I think it's a shame, but it is what it is. Somebody will write that on. That's what we say on the East Coast. I mean, if you've never heard that before, all right, I guess my East Coast bias showing that another world exists out there besides just the East Coast. I know, I'm surprised. All right, well, I think that episode probably ran a little long, and I know I didn't tell you what you wanted to hear. Don't know what else to say about that. But I don't want to lie to you. I mean, I don't want to come out here and just look. There are plenty of places you can go on the internet, and they'll throw at you whatever latest right-wing conspiracy theory or factoid is out there. Go there if you want me to. You want someone to tell you that Trump is going to be the president. I think very much is not likely to happen. But hey, I'd like it to happen. So if it does, come back and tell me I was wrong and laugh at me, and that'll be okay. I can deal with some people coming on the comment page and laughing at me and saying, "You doubted the great Donald Trump, he won anyway." It's like, yep, you were right. It looked bad there. I didn't think he was going to make it. Anyway, hopefully we'll have some better news to talk about next time. Thanks. I appreciate anybody that's been here watching this or has an interest in the politics. I like talking about politics. I'll probably make these videos until either the subscriber number plateaus, it becomes like work, and I get tired of doing it, or both. At that point, then, we may stop doing it. But for now, we'll keep doing it. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Thanks for being here. We'll probably have another one by the end of the week. Thanks.